Hi, this is Karen Murphy with Pearson. The purpose of this video is going to introduce you to the two main assignment types that are part of my IT lab, and also to share with you how to view the submissions in the gradebook for your students on those assignment types. So I'm going to go ahead and click into course materials. So this is a demo course. It's not going to look like yours, but this is one way that you can get into your course materials. And again, this is a student view, so students can also access their materials directly through course materials. I'm going to click into one of my folders, and when I open that, you'll notice that I have two different assignment types. They are either simulations or they are grader projects. I'm going to click into a simulation training so that you can take a look at what this is. And when you hear the word simulation, it's just what you think. It's a simulated office environment. So students aren't working live in the application, but instead they're working in a high fidelity HTML5 version of the simulation. Hopefully they're working on a faster internet connection than I am at my house, but this will pull up in just a moment. And you can see in the simulation an overview. This is as if I was working on an Excel screen. This would be my entire screen. And notice this is not a limited screen, so students are actually allowed to click around just as if they were working in Excel. We do not limit them to only the task that they are hoping to respond to. The instructions are below. If you're working on a wide screen, you may also find that your bar ends up over here on the right-hand side, but generally speaking, your instructions are below in nice bold print. It tells me what I need to do. A couple of other housekeeping items. You'll notice you have a bandwidth status, so you can see how strong your connection is. So if something appears to be lagging, you'll be able to look at that and see why. We also have learning aids available if they are in training mode. If they are in exam mode, this Learning Aids button will not be available because we are trying to assess whether or not they can do that without their training wheels, so to speak. Read instructions will take them to the ebook page that covers that topic. Watch video will show them a author scripted video that describes how to complete that task. So again, this is book matched. The aim is that the language will be similar to what they hear in the book. And then practice will take them through a guided practice of that skill. So these are designed to assist students truly as a learning tool as they're working through. Accessibility will launch both a screen reader and a translator. So if you have students for whom English is not their first language, we do have French, Arabic, Chinese, and they can choose which language, and it'll actually translate not just the screen but also the instructions and make a screen reader available for students who require that accommodation.
Accessibility on.
Your disabilities.
Using the accessibility toolbar. You may
Okay, so
closed.
if I wanted to translate to Spanish, I would just click on the flag and it'll actually translate.
Page.
It'll translate my whole page. And it'll take a moment, but you'll notice that everything on the page just turned to Spanish. And then of course I can move it back to English.
Translating page.
Lastly, if your students are working on a Mac,
Accessibility off.
or perhaps they've decided to do this on an iPad, they may find that they're missing a key that is needed to complete the task according to the instructions. Rather than create different versions of our Office 2016, this is technically a PC course, but students are given this keyboard. So if they open the keyboard, they should be able to complete any task that they would be required to by using this internal keyboard. We feel like that's a little bit more helpful than just telling them how they would do it if they were on a Mac and then maybe not letting them do it. This actually allows them to complete the task and get full credit for it. As they're completing the tasks, you can see that there's 27 tasks here. I can click to the next one after I save and move on. If they want to save for later and come back, they certainly have that capability. So this is a simulation. Apart and different from a simulation is a grader project. A grader project requires students to do work live inside the application. So if it's an Excel project, they're actually going to be working live in Excel. If it's Word, they're going to be working in Word. And I understand your students do have access to Office 365, so they shouldn't have an issue having access to those materials. There are 4 steps to working in a grader project. Step 1, you're going to download the files. I'm going to click here to download the materials, and it'll list the items that are available. You'll usually have a start file, and this file is just your instructions on how to complete the task that's required for the grader project. So typically you're going to download all files and work from there. It is worth mentioning to your students that they must download their own file from My IT Lab and start from scratch when building their assignment. We have a fidelity check, which I'm going to show you in a moment in the gradebook, that will let you know if your students are using someone else's file. We have every once in a while had an occasion where maybe a student went to a public computer, or maybe they had a roommate that was also taking the same course and they innocently used the wrong file. But most often, if you see a student who's used someone else's file, we're forced to consider that plagiarism. So just let them know that standard practice, they do need to download their own file and use that same start file. As you can see, step 2 is they're going to follow the instructions, working inside, in this case Excel, on their own computer in that document, and then next they're going to choose. So they're going to find that file on their computer that they've completed, and then lastly they're going to submit it for grading. It takes 3 to 5 seconds to grade your grader project, so you'll be very excited about that because it means that you're not hand grading those one at a time, which I'm sure you'll miss greatly. So I'm going to pop over into a different course so we can take a closer look at what those look like on the back side for the gradebook. So on the left-hand navigation bar, I'm going to click on Grades. And you'll notice again, pardon me, we have a couple of different views. And remember, the instructor gradebook has all of the assignments that are available for the students. Your custom view is only going to have those assignments that are flowing to the Blackboard gradebook. So again, depending on whether or not you want to look at, a simulation training or not, that would determine which of these sections you actually want to look at. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Instructor Gradebook. And then I'm going to click on Go Volume 1. And now I can see the assignment types that are available here up at the top, all of the assignments that are available to review. And notice I have 3 students in this class, and as an instructor you will always be registered as student, so you can actually submit work and have it graded and review basically what that process is for your students. Now if I want to look at all of the grades for my students, I can come up here, and from the drop-down menu I can view all submissions. But if I want to look at an individual student's grade, I can click here next to that student, and I'm going to view their grade or submission. This is a great resource if you ever have a student come to you and say, I got a 77% on this simulation and I want to know why, or I need help. This allows you to see exactly what your students did. This is a major advantage over hand grading because not only do you see the finished product, but we also see every single task that the student, every single action that the student took during the course of the assignment. So this is the question, this is what they were asked to do. These are the methods that we would accept to complete it, and we do allow for 96% of Microsoft's completions. And then these are the student actions. So you can see, again, we have an open-ended simulation. Students are allowed to click around, and so you can kind of tell if your students are wandering. And if they say, I feel like this should have been right, you can review these student actions, and if you feel like you were one of the, the student used one of the 4% of actions that were, should have been allowed, you can edit the grade right here. If you want to work with that student and have them demonstrate for you that task, again, you can click here and actually launch that training. And I can filter, I can look down here and see every single task. I can also filter here by all answers, or if this is a really long assignment like in this case, I can look at just the incorrect answers. That way it'll filter out the ones that the student got right, and I'll just be looking at the ones that they need help with. So that's your clickstream data that's available. For the grader projects, we have here the same capability, and I'd like to point out that we have another logo here that you'll want to get familiar with. It looks like 2 pieces of paper, and that means that there's an integrity violation on this assignment. So let's click in and view this assignment so you can take a closer look. I'll maximize my screen so you can see a little bit better. You'll notice up here we have this notification that says potential integrity violation detected. And if I click on show details, it's going to tell me what kind of violation it was. We have two different types of security checks in my IT lab. One is a document level, which, remember when we were talking about downloading the documents, if I use someone else's file, it's going to show up as a document level integrity violation. Apart from that, we also have a content level integrity violation. We put data points inside the documents so we can tell if a student has copied and pasted from some other file. Maybe they got through 11 out of 12 tasks and they got to the 12th and they weren't really sure what to do. And let's face it, these books are widely used, just like all publisher materials. It's easy for these things to get online, and this is one way that you can ensure that your students are not copying and pasting either from one another or from someone else on the web. And it tells you that there were 8 points checked and that yes, there was an integrity violation. If it were one of your own students that the student copied from, you would most likely see a name here. If it's an ID, it's probably someone from another school. But this is the information, the documentation that you would need if you actually needed to send that information further up to the administration to demonstrate that plagiarism had been an issue. This screen, I'm going to kick over to my PowerPoint here real quick because this has actually changed a little bit. It's just a little bit cleaner. And this is our new grader project report. It will show the list of tasks that we were asked to complete. It'll show how many points a student earned out of how many points possible. And anywhere that you have an error, you can click on this little red bar and it'll break it out for you where the student missed points. A lot of these questions are multiple points. So, maybe they got some of the question right and they missed other portions. And so this allows them to see very clearly where their errors were. And we also have this live comments report. So students can click there and it actually pulls up a live, and we do still have this. It just pulls up a little differently. We do still have this live comments report, and it's basically what you would get if someone had hand graded your project and notated it with errors that they found. So this is a marked up report. It tells you exactly what errors were made, and I can look at, I can look at sheet 1 real quick. And if I hover, you can see the green means that the student got that field correct. But if I hover over anywhere where there's a red in the corner, I can see exactly where the error was made and what the error was for and why those points were deducted. So again, in 3 to 5 seconds, your students have access to their submission reports, as do you. And on the next video, we will cover how to get those grades from my IT lab over to the Blackboard side.